What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we just took a break from our NATT swap series that we've been working on. We've been trying to get an NATT engine ready for this DN1 twin turbo down here. So we did take a break and we went and had a little bit of fun in our Z at the project car meet up at Prism Mike's show. And then right when we came back, we were fully committed to getting this convertible done. So as of now, this convertible is done and it's ready for pickup. If you guys seen the video, you know there's like literal 3 minuscule things we got to finish out before it's ready to go. And one of them is getting it registered so we can drive it and then actually give the title to Eric. And then he's supposed to repair our slick top. So we get to go down to Indianapolis and watch him pull out all the rear collision damage and dolly it out, and we get to help him along with the process. So for today, I wanted to do the next part of our NATT swap, which is pull the motor from the DN1 and place our motor in. However, there's just a couple little things, quality of life things that I would like to do to that motor before we actually put it in. We're not doing the next portion of an NATT swap today, but we are messing with an NATT swap. Here is our drift chassis. At least we were going to drift it before we found out all kinds of different issues that's preventing me from even just driving it on the street right now to test and shake things down. And we're actually using this car for panels to repair my slick top. I need the rear floor frame and a few other things, so this is going to be the donor for that. But we actually have a new drift chassis or drift car. But today in this video, we're going to be pulling this full drivetrain twin turbo swap, and we're going to put this into that. Now we get to pull this bad boy around and actually make a skid chassis. Let's start tearing into this Z and getting it to where we can rip this drivetrain out and safely transplant it, hopefully in one day. If not, we should be able to have this done by tomorrow. It's all a plug and play swap. I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to start ripping everything here off the top so we can get it to where we just pull the motor out. I want to check everything off the list on the top just to where the motor will make it out without being hung up. So then next we can just tackle everything underneath and we don't have to worry about hanging out under the car for too long. I am going to pull the trans separate because it doesn't take me very long, especially with that mat, and it makes it easier coming out of the car, and I don't dump all my trans fluid out too. Redline MTF 90 is not very cheap. It's like 25 bucks a bottle or something. So I think I decided our goal for today is we're going to attempt a one-day twin turbo swap or body swap. Let's get started. I really hope I don't lose my balance tube O-rings here. Man, no way. I just had to speak. It went in the freaking plenum. If you ever do the same thing that I just did, this pick right here is plenty enough to get down in there and pick it up. Guess we'll go ahead and start with our wiring harness now. That's dang near probably the biggest thing to do. Now that all the intake piping's off, now let's focus on our fuel rail. We actually have an adjustable fuel pressure regulator set up. So there's a lot more fuel line than normal. Even though you don't have to, I still choose to keep my factory damper in place just for a little extra dampening. A little bit of E left in there. I'd much rather have this one hose coming in here instead of the normal fuel pressure regulator, because it becomes a pain to tighten this clamp in this tight area. No fuel in that one. How nice. I guess we did take the fuel tank out, so theoretically I was stressing over nothing there. I guess we can take our boost controller MAC valve off and just lay it over here on the plane. Keep the radiator cap on while we have this open, and you can kind of bleed your pressure off to increase how much you want to come out. So I'm not going to do this all the way. I'll probably put, I don't know, a quart or two in the pan just to where I can close it off and then actually pull this radiator out nearly filled with fluid. And I'll remove this long hose and this top hose and just keep it all one assembly. Now, pulling a twin turbo radiator is always a really tight fit, so there's going to be a lot of finagling and probably cussing. Wow, that was actually the best that one of these has ever came out for me. Going back in is probably a whole nother story. We'll see when the time comes. If you're swapping your NA to TT, you can buy these things on Z1 Motorsports to convert your lower mount points for your radiator. I'm excited to put all this in a car that hasn't been wrecked. We'll probably pull our intake system. We'll pull our catch can as well. And honestly, other than that, power steering is all that's left to pull this thing out. I usually recommend to put your upper radiator hose on your lower one and turn it up so it doesn't sit here and drip like it is currently. So to pull our intercoolers, you'll have these brackets right here. Sometimes there's one bolted down here and hanging here on the side if you have stock ones. We're actually just gonna pull these brackets off. 2 12s. We're gonna leave this one on just so it's a little easier to mount. Then let's pull the hose clamp here and back here so we can keep the hoses in all as one unit. When we go to fit it, it'll be all together and less for us to put together and keep track of. I'd have to say I recommend grabbing some new silicone intercooler couplers. They're gonna be soft. Instead of buying an OEM or factory rubber hose that's hard as a rock, it's just ease of installation. I know these are gonna be hard to come off more than likely. Wow, the back one is actually pretty easy. There we go. Intercooler removed. Now that both intercoolers are off, next step is our recirc valves. You'll have this 12 mil on both sides of the recirc valve, your vacuum source on top, and then you'll have these 2 hoses from here that also go back here. So they're connected from your under the headlight intake pipe to this inner pipe that goes to your throttle body. To separate them, we've got a 10 mil here. And honestly, it's just a matter of fishing it out and finding the only way that you can pull it out. There's really only one way they can go in and out, and it just takes time to sort that out. So let's remove that all real quick and get it to where we can get to the bottom of the car. Got everything out intake wise, all moved in here, so it's ready to go in. Fuel system. Now the single-handed only thing is the power steering and engine mount nuts holding it on up here in the front. Honestly, the most time-consuming thing is going to be getting that ready for this, because we have to pull out the NA air conditioning system. We do need to put a brake caliper on up here to swap the wiring harness over. Not to mention, we still don't have our steering rack connected. And the worst part, we have to get this over here. Turns out I completely forgot. We already took the HKS cap back off. Nice, that makes things so much easier for us. Now we're just at the mercy of pulling off some test pipes. At least they're all 14 mil. Well, we're gonna go ahead and knock this all out and get it where we're ready to access the transmission and move on to our next step. So now we're pretty much ready to pull the trans out. We just got it to where we're ready to pull the trans mounts off and then lower the jack accordingly to get a little bit of extra clearance or reach. And honestly, since I've got this impact now, this has been a breeze. Like, everything has went so much faster than normal. I love it. Making good time. Look how nasty this rack is as well. That's something else I'm really excited for about this other chassis. Since everything's not wrecked and it's in good shape, not only will everything fit right, we've got a brand new rebuilt rack that's in it. It's not brand new, but it's pretty new. So I'm pretty excited to be able to just work off of that, have a good steering knuckle as well, because the one in this car was bad. There's a lot more ups to this other chassis, and I'm all for it. If you're ever pulling your bell housing bolts, this is all I recommend. About 1.5 foot extension, swivel tip, and a 14 mil. Get your top bolts from the side here. You don't need 5 foot from the rear. I mean, you can do it, but you can also do it right here from the side. Okay, that one's tight. Throw a rag in your tail housing just in case it starts dripping on you everywhere. Now this here is a visual representation of what happens if you don't clean up brake fluid that gets on your paint. It'll literally just peel right off. I don't know if that was me being careless because drift car, or if that was something the previous owner did, but so far neither one of my turbos have oil on them. That's a huge plus. Last time I had turbos, before I actually did replace the turbos before I put it in this car, those old turbos were super leaky and they both blew oil everywhere. So far it looks like everything's just as clean as it was when we put it in. Can't ask for more than that. Now it's time to drop our trans. It was literally that easy. I love working on stuff that I've messed with previously because it's about always like that. Drop her down. Ooh, even that clutch still looking mighty fine. It's only had like 1,000 miles. Trans is now out, at least out from under the car. Engine's ready to go. So we're actually about to scooter up in here doing our little one-man tactic where we lift it up, put some blocks under it, roll it forward 2 feet, 3 feet at a time on them boards till we can get it up here. So before we start pulling the power steering stuff, I'm actually going to lift the motor up a little bit to get some more access, because these accordion hoses are super annoying as they're always in the way. Let's start the extraction. Prepare for liftoff. Alright, I just remembered one more thing we need to do. We need to unplug our alternator to transmission harness. So that's where my new alternator to transmission harness went. At least it went to my own car. Now we've got some clearance for this little 8mm, and we can move this or even take it off for access to our high pressure line. Let's get it. We're all done. Well, for now at least. Check it out. It really looks like we have absolutely no leaks now. Even our half moons are clean. Turbos are completely clean. So this is the sandwich plate thing that I've spoken to a few of you in the comments about. So if you only have an NA oil tree and you don't have this line right here, there's 2 different plugged fittings up there, right there. So what you can do is buy a port that you actually run a feed in place of this on your oil tree, so you can have a feed for your oil cooler. And also when I install it, I just throw it up here. Yeah, you'll need probably like 6 foot of transmission line or transmission hose. And that is the alternate way to run that, but I have mine set up here for an oil pressure gauge. Now, there's a little bit of oil over here. We'll have to kind of find out where that's coming from. That very well could have been from previously. I just didn't clean it up. Here's another example of our water lines. It's one of my cleaner setups. And we actually just used Gates barricaded fuel hose. This one loops up and around up here. And this one right up here. All right, let's move this out and let's swap a couple of things over, a couple boring things: wiring harness, heater core hoses, power steering hoses. We're gonna rip the AC out of the other one. We actually need to swap our clutch master, clutch line, and slave cylinder as a full unit. I don't believe we have anything over here. We have absolutely nothing, but we have a clutch line in place. Oh, you guys see it here. Here's before. Let's go ahead and get all this stuff done, because we still got a lot of work to do. I just realized we got to drain the fuel tank as well. We got a good chunk of everything done so far. We got our wiring harness swapped with a couple brackets, battery harness, and we actually went ahead and threw on our intercoolers and intercooler piping. It is pretty self-explanatory, but we'll clear that up in about a week or 2 when we actually get to working on the other one. So it's probably been all of 5 hours. I thought it was going to be an hour ordeal. No, I was sadly mistaken. There was a lot of work to do. It was a lot of work just to get the car from over here to right here. I had to do it by myself and with no car, so I had to literally push it. Our last step before we can actually drop the motor in is we have this oil line for our power steering that goes from there to there that we need to sort out. I actually probably just toss this on. There's no good reason not to, I guess is the better way to say it. So let's go get that oil line on and let's wheel this thing up and let's drop our engine finally. One thing I am going to look over is every coupler, and especially these and the accordions down here. I want to make sure there's no cracks so we can make sure there's no boost leak potential, and that we're not going to have any problems, because this stuff is hard enough to get with the engine in the car. So cover all your bases while it's out. Oh, this is what the braided lines look like. Yeah, looks way better than that hard line junk, especially with that little 90 elbow right there. I'm actually going to throw this radiator conversion bar down here, that way we don't forget, because we're actually going to put our radiator in right now. I only want to do that just for ease of installation. I hope I don't regret it when we go, because our fan is hitting our radiator. Sounds like we got a fire going on. I also managed to find a silicone hose, so that was cool. I'm also about to replace these fuel lines. Since they're hard to reach, don't forget, E85 fuel lines. Both of our hoses have been replaced, and now we're ready to party. I think it's officially that time. We can drop our power plant back in. Yeah, I didn't clean up as much down here as maybe I would have liked, but drift car, we don't need it to be perfect. We just need it to function. Yeah, I keep trying to think of anything I may have forgot that we need to do with this. I think we're ready to go. Bombs away. I almost forgot to put this in. Radiator's in. I think we're good to go with the engine now. I'm struggling with a way to mount this thing, so let's drop it real quick because my fingers are begging me right now. Oh, time for you to hold the camera. Oh, you don't think I'm tired? I've been working out here all fucking day.
And action. That was an action, Katie.
I got my assistants out here. Had someone help me guide one motor mount. Is it in over there?
I guess.
Do you not remember what your good job was earlier?
Looks good to me.
Is it in the hole?
It's been in the hole. What are you talking about?
I just pulled it out.
Why would you do that?
We do put this accordion hose on the passenger side before we drop it because it's a lot harder to get to. But this time I actually left the 8mm of the hose clamp right there on the top, so we have access to it a little bit better. Now let's play this smarter and let's hook our heater core hoses up before we actually just drop the engine back off to full tilt. Because usually what happens is I end up crushing these hose clamps and making them flat, then they no longer work. It's finally that time. Drop all that weight, unhook the goods. Finally at somewhat of a stopping point. So let's go grab some food. As soon as we're back, we will start putting the transmission back in and seeing what all we can get done on the underside of the car so we can eliminate that to where we're just left with this top side. Catch you guys in a moment. So we just got back. Reality kind of set in. I don't think we're going to keep going too much tonight. It's 11 o'clock. It took way too long to get our food. Granted, we kind of showed up late. So the plan is we are about to go to bed, wake up, and when we wake up, we have 6 hours to finish. Enough of the chit chat. Let's get this thing in. Now we got the car out and we had a little mishap pulling it out. See what way that wheel's directed? Check that out. Yeah, they're definitely both pointing inwards. Our tie rod has fallen out. Fantastic thing. We are stopping now. I really don't want to be the loud guy out here in a quiet neighborhood when everyone's got their window open because it's super hot. And we'll be back and we will get this done within the first 6 hours tomorrow. 'Tis the morning, and sorry for anything I may have goofed up saying last night. I got delirious and I was so beat last night. I haven't felt like that in a while since I was working 16-hour shifts doing flooring. Today's the day. It's about 9:30 right now. We have about 5 hours to complete this to the point where it marks the 24-hour mark. The first thing to do today, let's lift it up on blocks and let's get our transmission in. So I just get the transmission out here and I'd get thoroughly disgusted. I goofed up leaving it outside last night. Let's just say I have a thing against earwigs. These things are like the grossest creature. They were hiding up in the trans mount. Right there. Little dudes with the pinchers on their butt. Hopefully, we're all about cleared out by now. Let's let down the front since we have it lifted a little bit to clear the bell housing to get it in. So the way I installed transmissions all by myself with no help. I have one of these low pro jacks and I balance it right underneath where the gearbox mates together at the bottom, where you see that little part that touches the mat. And I use that to balance right here in this cup. So as long as your flywheel is properly aligned, this will be a breeze. The biggest struggle is getting this lifted up by yourself while you slide the jack under it. I'll balance the bell housing with my legs while I lift up here and hold the shift fork with my other arm until I can get it wedged in the trans tunnel. Then I flip around and bring my head down there to you guys. And then as I roll it forward, I try to line up the bell housing bolts with the bolts on like gusset plates or whatever, so you know where to shoot it. Don't go too high, because the next step you want it to be too low so you can adjust it. Now is where you use the jack with your feet. All you're going to be watching is your input shaft. Center it to get it in your clutch and get it started. Like that. You guys can kind of see it on camera. The gusset plate being separated makes it look a lot more like defined. But if you look, we actually have more of a gap at the top, and we're lining it up with the flywheel. So you want to get that as straight and flush with that flywheel. Then you know your trans is square and it should slide straight in. If not, that's when you can rock it to move your input shaft so your splines actually line up in your clutch, and it'll go in all nice and smooth. I know I've showed you guys this quite a few times, but it never hurts to maybe help the new guy on the channel, because I know some people look at installing or swapping a trans as a big task. It's really not a big deal. You see, as we rocked it, moved it there, we just got the splines to line up, and since we've got our clutch perfectly aligned, just keep watching or go back if you need reference. And once you get it lined up, it'll just slide right into place. It works every time. Now go ahead and thread a couple of your bolts in. Now we're gonna snug all those up, put our trans mount bolts in, get our engine mount nuts on, and get this drivetrain all squared up and mounted. Make sure you give yourself plenty of clearance and don't bust yourself right in the chin with your ratchet like me. I don't have enough room under here. Fighting earwigs. I'm getting ticked off, man. That's a first. I need a breather. Well, we did go clean it up. I don't know if it's still bleeding everywhere. We just got the trans mounted. Now we're gonna go find a suitable starter. We're gonna get that on before we put our test pipes on. We got our clutch slave all mounted up. Clutch line ran, and we just hooked up our trans wiring. We do need to go find a solid shifter mount so we can upgrade and also use a good short throw shifter to pair with it. Come to find out, I actually had a parts store starter on this, so I had to look so we can upgrade and get back with an OEM one. Final piece to the starter puzzle is the power supply. So check out this huge L that it appears I have taken. It appears we have crushed our oil cooler line. Now here's actually the hose that was pinched, and I pulled everything out to where we can actually pull the hose down and inspect it, so we don't have to just straight jump to conclusions that we need to replace it if it's not damaged. Looks like our hose is all good. Now for shifter wise, we're actually going with the Z-Speed solid support bracket with the Z-Speed shifter. You can see where it mounts like this. This is the direction to be mounted up. How it's curved back, twisted around, now it's curved forward. They're actually meant to be kind of curved back to you, so it's facing the driver. So this is fairly simple to install. You just have these two here that bolt up to these flanges on your trans, and then you have your clutch fork that bolts right there and right here. I have to say it's a pretty simple install. Easy enough. That literally took like 3 minutes. I love these solid shifter plates because you can actually mount everything as one unit versus struggling to hold the top and bottom, you know, to secure these bolts and nuts on your shifter itself. Now for the drive shaft. But we snagged us a solid steel one-piece drive shaft. I can't say if it's solid, but it's steel. The drive shaft not only is in, but we got our 2 test pipes in, only to find out that somehow this piece is on wrong. You can tell by this side's supposed to be up by the drive shaft for clearance, and these 2 that are on the bottom should be up top. So let's flip that around and finish off our exhaust. All the cruddy stuff is finally done. We actually got sufficient hardware to mount everything nice and securely, and I'm about positive we're not going to have any exhaust leaks. Time to move up to the top side. We actually already did the power steering J hose and the high pressure fitting. Hard stuff's done. Let's start plugging away. Now before we route our recording hose back, we're actually going to run our wiring over here for our PTU. Thank goodness it's been sitting out in the sun and it is all free willy-nilly and can actually bend. I hate a cold wiring harness. Who would have ever thought you'd been shoulder deep trying to get in to work on an intake pipe on your Z? Ouch. We are pinned in here. So I managed to snake my arm in enough to get to the accordion hose connector or inlet, and well, we made it, but at a very tight cost. At least our accordions are hooked up. Got our TPS plugged in, and we route that crank angle sensor. We actually managed to put it underneath instead of over top this time. That should clean it up a bit. Now let's put our boost pipes on and get to where we're just on to the plenum, and we can finally put our finishing touch on it. Now we got the harness on, balance tube's just on loosely for now. So I got to thinking, there's no reason we need to put our intakes on just yet. Reason being, we actually have to run our catch can and all of our ugly octopus looking wires. That's just kind of what I think, because there's so many just big round hoses moving through the bay. Yeah, we probably need to put that on first. And if you do have a catch can, don't forget, these are your inlets. So your air comes from here, moves up into your catch can, through your catch can, and back in down here, clean air into the intake. So let's just throw that in, because this is already wreaking havoc on my knuckles. We are officially done. Yeah, we went the extra mile. I'm sorry, this has been a hey, we're gonna do this, bam, we did this, now we're gonna do this video. When I pushed myself to do this in 24 hours, I think I really lowered the standard for quality of video, and I'm sorry about that. But we have made it. If you're running your recirc backline, it'll come right off the top here. There's actually a hard pipe on some of these, some of them there's not. If there is a hard pipe, you can connect a short part to that, and then another hose right here to the bottom side down here. And you run each of your recirc valves up here. This is to your old carbon canister port on your balance tube, and our other one over here comes up to our balance tube. That's how you run your recirc valves. So we've officially got the full twin turbo swap done in 24 hours. Technically it's 25. We lapsed over a little bit of an hour, but we got the full drivetrain, just everything in, with the exception of that oil cooler, that boost controller, which we got to put all of our gauges in. We're not including that for this video. We've also got a bunch of other little things to tie up, like suspension and whatnot. But our last step for today's video, we actually need to drain the tank of all the old fuel. We need to make the swap on over to E85. It's just an older pump assembly that I have thrown in here for the time being. I've just realized something. I hate to know how much gas is evaporated out of this car. This has been exposed like this for quite a while. It's so bad, look at that float, it won't even come down. I think the majority of our gas is evaporated, and I no longer have a full tank to take and put in my convertible. I didn't want to have to go buy fuel, but we might have to. So it actually doesn't look like there's a lot. Like, there's literally nothing inside of there. We may be able to get away with a direct pump swap. We can just dump this completely full of ethanol, seal it up, and be good to go. I think that's what we're gonna do. So basically, instead of us having to drain this whole tank, wait for that, siphon it, strain it, and transfer it to another car in between a 2-gallon jug, now we can just move forward, and we actually already have a drop-in assembly ready. Here is our 2-seater with a Walbro 485 pump. Since we made the 24-hour mark, I'm gonna go take a breather. I've been sweating constantly. I've been getting dirt and just constant sweat in my new chin split. I think I earned this little break, and I really want to get something very, very cold to drink. Not alcohol though. We'll be back in a moment, and hopefully it'll be when we're ready to fire this thing up, or at least drop the pump in. So we've got the pump all ready to go. Our little preventative maintenance to keep it from flopping when we're sliding. I do need to get a better setup, something I can put around the pump itself. So I don't know if you guys just heard that. We've got a pretty mighty storm rolling in, and I just checked the forecast. Even though it wasn't supposed to rain until like the weekend, even though it's Friday, this just barreled in out of nowhere, and it's supposed to rain all evening. This really backs me into a corner. Literally all we have left, coolant overflow, fuel pump, and all of our gauges. Instead of worrying about all that this video, I think it's probably safe to say that we did our full swap, and then we can take the time to do all the electronics tomorrow, so we make sure that we do it correctly. I'd rather it be done okay and right and actually work than there be any questioning. So fortunately, I think we're gonna wrap up the video here. Let's just keep the ball rolling. Let's just do, and we'll continue first thing tomorrow. But until then, if you guys liked the video, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe down below. Stay tuned for more content, and we will catch you guys in the next one. Peace. We have now had 2 trees fall back here since the storm started. Pray for the Z's, you guys. Yeah, it's not looking so good. We'll see you guys in the next one.